Dear police officers of Reddit, have you ever responded to a call for paranormal reasons? My uncle works for dispatch in my town and he recently told my family of the weirdest call he's ever gotten. He says that he had received a call from a landline one night and when he answered it there was only static on the other end. This happened 2 more times. Finally he calls a squad to go check out the address from the caller id. When the cops got there and walked into the house they immediately saw that there was a dead body. The person had been dead for 5 months. The craziest part about it was that there was no electricity or any other utility working. So there is no way they should have been able to get those calls into dispatch. But if they hadn't, who knows how long that person's body would have stayed there. Not my call, but my dad served for 25 years. Wasn't really a ghost story but I think it's worth telling. One night he gets a call from a woman who says her neighbor has made a pact with the devil. The woman calling is about 35 and a religious wacko. The neighbor called about is about 75 at the time. My dad went over and knocked on the door, and the old lady answers, all happy, nice place decorated the same way for the past 50 years. She invites my dad in without even asking why he came, makes him some coffee, and asks how his day was. Naturally at this point my dad is wondering what the heck the call was about, but it came clear soon. At some point my dad realizes he isn't the only person she is talking to, and that she thinks her apartment is full of people. My dad thanks her for the coffee and she tells him to come back anytime. The whole time she was talking he was writing down the names of the people she was talking to and does some research on her when he gets back. Turns out she was talking to family members who were all dead. She had a daughter, 3 sons, a brother and a husband, all dead, and she had no family and no friends. She hadn't spoken to another person in years. Her groceries were delivered and she rarely left her apartment. Over the next 19 years my dad took care of her. My sister and I came over all the time and just sat and talked with her. She even taught me how to cook. Over the years she stabilized and stopped talking to her dead relatives. She just needed people to live with. She actually lived till she was 94 and died in the guest room of my parents' house since it had become harder to take care of her from a distance as she got closer to the end. She was like a grandma for us. TLDR. Nut called about devil contacting old lady turned into great part of my whole family life and one of few moments that make me think humanity can be good. Your dad is a hero. My uncle was the sheriff of a small town in New Mexico. He was the most hardcore person in our family, super straight-laced, never really BS'd and wasn't at all a joker. So when he told this story, backed up by my aunt, we all believed it without question. A local reporter named Bob D would always show up at any major police activity from the police scanner, big car wrecks, fires, anything worth maybe reporting in the local paper. Everybody on the force knew Bob D. He was around at least once or twice a week at various police activities. Bob was a bit of a joker himself. He would mess with people by flicking behind their ears. People would react to the flicks thinking it was a bug only to turn around and see it was Bob jerking around. Everybody liked Bob. Unfortunately, Bob had bad lung cancer and died pretty suddenly. His wife buried him, against his wishes. He wanted to be cremated. For the next couple of weeks, after his funeral, people kept talking about seeing Bob at car wrecks, fires, all the same stuff he used to report on. There were 20-30 reports like this from civilians and members of the force. My uncle didn't buy it until the night he and my aunt showed up at our house, gun drawn, pale as paper. We asked him what the heck happened, and he had to sit down, take his breath, compose himself and start to outline what happened. Note, this is a guy that I never saw get rattled by anything, he said. My aunt and he were sitting on the couch in their house watching TV. My uncle kept scratching at his ear, over and over. Finally my aunt asked him what the problem was and he turned around just in time to see their bedroom door open. Bob D. standing there in the doorway, clear as day. My uncle jumped up, cussed or something, got my aunt's attention who turned to see him there too. As soon as they both made eye contact with him, Bob smiled, turned, walked across the living room and out their front door, closed the door behind himself and was gone. My uncle got control of himself and ran outside, gun drawn looking for Bob, but he was gone. At that point they ran over to our place. We went over there and didn't see anything, but my aunt and uncle stayed at our place at night. At work the next day, all the guys on the force were giving my uncle lots of "we told you so." People around town said they saw Bob D show up at police scenes for at least another 2-3 months. My dad saw him in our dark room in our basement with a friend. He was flicking their ears in the dark. During the 3rd month, people that saw him kept saying he was looking worse and worse. My uncle saw him 2 more times, each time confirming he was looking more and more worn. My dad had concluded that he was decomposing and his ghost was reflecting that process. Every time my ear itches, I get goosebumps. Bloody heck, man. Not me, but my dad was a cop for 32 years. This was one of his craziest calls. A call goes out for reported screaming. It's mid-January. Important later. My father and another officer respond to find a known deranged individual. Very long rap sheet and has been in and out of psychiatric care for years, sitting on the front porch holding a double-sided wood-splitting axe. Steam is coming up off the grass and there are chunks lying all over the lawn. Upon interviewing the suspect, he admits that he and a friend were playing poker. The suspect was losing nearly every hand and came to the conclusion that his friend was a H-ain't Southern for ghost and was cheating him. The suspect grabbed the axe and chased his friend outside and hacked him into dozens of pieces, thus causing the warm blood to create steam on the grass. My dad tells the suspect that he needs to get in the police car because it's H-ain't proof. He said the suspect dropped the axe and sprinted to get in the back seat while thanking them for helping him. TLDR. My father convinced an axe murderer to get in his cop car because it's ghost proof. Holy crap, got my first Reddit gold. I'm gonna go retire in Guatemala. This is actually the most terrifying story I've read in this thread. My platoon mates responded to a call where the lady said the ghost of a cat was under her bathroom sink. She also never owned a cat, so she didn't know whose cat ghost it was. One of them chased it out with a broom. Problem solved. They should have taken it to ghost animal shelter. I was called to a job at night where the informant said there were firearms being shot in the area. Semi-rural. Nothing strange at first glance. Searched the general area and found nothing, so approached the informant. She was a middle-aged hippie. She proceeded to tell me that a UFO had landed a couple of properties over and she saw aliens shooting laser guns at cattle. I smiled, doffed and left. Worked as a police officer in a small town in rural Nebraska. Back in the 90s, I was patrolling through town in winter. We had several abandoned houses in town, but one seemed to have the attraction of copper thieves, so we were told to keep an eye on it. Drove by it around 7 o'clock p. Since it sat on a corner lot, I had a clear view of all 4 sides of the house. As I drove around the corner, nothing looks out of the ordinary. About 2 hours later I drive by again and the back door is wide open. I know that the back door was not open when I drove by it earlier. Looking at the snow on the ground around the house, there were no footprints. So I think, what the heck? Call dispatch. Tell them I'm investigating an open door at that address and ask for a county sheriff to start my way. I walk to the open door, pull out my flashlight and shine it inside. The house has obviously been gutted for the most part. The plaster walls have been torn down, debris piles everywhere. Since there were no footprints in the snow around the door other than mine, and with all the dust on the floor not showing any footprints, I chalk it up to the wind, or maybe the door just opened on its own. I was about to secure the door when I heard a loud thump come from upstairs and what sounded like kids laughing. So I enter the house and yell out, "Police department, come downstairs." More of what sounds like kids playing. I tell dispatch that it sounds like there are kids in the house and start making my way through the kitchen into the living room where the stairs are, all the while cautiously checking the main floor. 2 more times I hear something upstairs, but since I've had no response, I start thinking maybe it's an animal. Still, I hear what I'd swear was kids laughing. I head upstairs and it all gets quiet. The upstairs is relatively small with a hallway at the top of the stairs that has 1 bedroom on the right, 1 straight ahead at the end of the hall, and a bedroom on the left. As I get to the top of the stairs, I hear a thump in the bedroom to the left. I carefully peek around the door and it's an empty room with a small pile of plaster and wood debris in the middle. No kidding, sitting on top of the pile of debris was a page torn out of a child's book with a picture of a police officer on it. The hair stood up on the back of my neck. I got out of that room, quickly cleared the other rooms upstairs and got the frick out of there. Told dispatch nobody was in the house. Locked the back door and never went back in there again. Darn son. Now that's creepy. I am not a cop, but 3 years ago our very elderly next door neighbor died suddenly in her house. They found her body 5 days later in the kitchen. Fast forward to last summer. I'm sitting in my house watching a movie and all of a sudden about 8 police cars come out of nowhere, sirens blaring, lights on, and most park in that empty house. Some park in my driveway, so I went outside to see what was up. A police officer went through the quick formalities and asked if I had seen anything strange in the past 5 minutes. I replied no and rather hesitantly asked what was going on. He said that the police department received a call from the house and when the operator picked up the line went dead. I stayed at a friend's that night. If your neighbor had life alert, it could have been that. I've had several calls as an EMT where a person who died had life alert. Their family didn't disconnect it. Life alert called their phone for a check-in, they didn't answer, and then 911 was notified. When I was in high school, the days before cell phones were common, my friends were to come over to pick me up from my house one night. We had made plans at school for them to pick me up at 7 p.m. At 6, my parents said I had to come with them to do something, and I totally forgot to call my friends and tell them. They came to my house at 7 p.m. and called the house phone. No one answered. There was 4 of them in the car. They all told us the exact same story. They said that they were about to pull out of my driveway, but they saw someone peek through the blinds from the bedroom on the top floor right. That was my room, so they assumed that I was fricking around. 5 more times, they said that someone would peek through the blinds, and a couple of them said they even saw the person's eyes. We got home at probably 7:10, 7:15, and they were still in our driveway. One of my friends came over and said they thought I was messing with them. Then they asked me, "So, who's staying in your room?" I told them that no one. So they asked, "Who's home at your house right now again?" I told them, "No one." Their stone cold faces then told me what they had seen repeatedly over the last 15 minutes. At first, we all thought there was a burglar in the house or something, so we called the cops. They came over and inspected the house. There was 0 signs of break-in, nothing was touched and nothing was stolen. Our house had an alarm on it, so there is no way someone could have come into the house without setting off the alarm. My family, my friends, and the cop all kind of stood around for a few minutes, trying to make sense of the situation. My friends swore up and down, and still do, that they couldn't have imagined what they saw. All 4 of them saw the same things, and it wasn't particularly a dark night, so their eyes wouldn't be playing tricks on them. To this day, none of us can make sense of the situation. I would be afraid to sleep in my room after that. Called to a residence out in the boonies. This was in Wyoming, so the boonies are really the boonies. At about 11 p.m. about suspicious activity. When we get there, we are told by the family living there that there are very strange screams coming from a creek area about 1,000 feet out. And sure enough, waiting outside on the porch with them for about a minute, I hear it. It is very hard to describe what it sounded like. It was like a woman in very severe distress, bit higher pitched, and each scream lasted for about 10-15 seconds. It never sounded like it was saying anything. It just sounded like a cry of sheer terror, and it repeated again. We tell the family we are going to investigate, so we just walk down to the creek since it was nice out. We hear about 2 more screams, getting louder as we approach the creek. By now, we're both kind of freaked out. There are 2 possibilities. Someone is getting murdered, maimed in the creek bed, or it's a wild animal. As we approach the creek bed, we hear no screams for about 5 minutes. We search around and find nothing, yelling at the top of our lungs for somebody to come towards if they are there. Then, we hear the exact same scream behind us, exactly from where we came from. We get about halfway back to the house, and the scream comes so loudly it seems to be right next to us. We frantically shine our flashlights everywhere and find nothing. No eye glints of animals, no rustling of bushes, just silence. We trace our steps back, and the scream comes from around the creek again. This time, it lasted about 30 seconds and was much louder than before. our retreat becomes a little more hastened. By this time we were both scared shitless and verified with the family to call us again if they heard it. They never called again, and we got the heck out of there. I still don't know what it was. As an avid outdoorsman, I know no animal makes a cry like that, especially one that can move stealthily without being spotted by flashlights. Something else that weirded me out was that it was completely silent while the screams were happening. During summer in Wyoming, there is always some type of ambient animal sounds. Frogs croaking, crickets chirping, owls hooting, coyotes howling, etc. But there was nothing until we were leaving and the screams had stopped. Then a frog started croaking. It gives me the creeps just thinking about it still. Yes, actually, really freaking weird. Back when I was working as a cop on a military base, I loved working night shift. Didn't deal with 99% of the bulls that day shift dealt with, and what little stuff we did deal with was usually really interesting. Well, most every building on a base is alarmed and the alarms are tied right into the desks so we know the instant they go off. When we get an alarm activation, we close the base and go check the building, pull on all the doors, see if we can get in. If we can, we go into the building and secure it, check all the doors and corners to see if someone set the alarm off. Well, one night I was on patrol with my alpha partner, and we get called to respond to an alarm activation at the elementary school. So we go, secure the building, and call in that the building is all secure. No problem, keep patrolling. So about 15-20 minutes go by and we get another alarm activation. We get back out there and check, and now there is a maintenance door open that leads into a boiler roomish thing. Nothing in it. We close it, lock it and get out. Another 20 minutes, and another alarm. We respond. All the doors are still locked and we can't get in. Maintenance door is locked. Call in the all clear. This time my buddy and I sit on opposite sides of the school and watch to see if someone is coming and yanking the doors real hard to set the alarm off. We sit there and watch. Nothing happens, and right as we're about to leave, another alarm activation. As we're sitting there, we inform the desk that we'd like the building manager on site to help us secure the interior and to let us in. This is like now 3 AM. Building custodian shows up and we start doing a walkthrough, checking all the classrooms and checking all the maintenance rooms, and that's when we see one of the maintenance doors open with the lights on in the room. Now this room is literally the size of a closet. We walk down there and look in, no one's in it, and that door is locked when it closes. We look in there and we find a single footprint of a bare foot made of water. Left foot as a recall of a small child. Freaked the living heck out of us because no one reported a missing child and the entire building was clear and still locked up. No one left. No one entered, and we checked every inch of that dang place. Literally a 3-hour deep sweep including ceiling tiles. Freaked the ever-loving crap out of us, and to this day, my partner refuses to go into that school. Speaking of which, schools are really freaking spooky when they're empty. Posted this story a while back. Hope you like it. 100% true. I was a 911 dispatcher for about 5 years out of school. One night I got a call from a lady at a residence in town. 911. What is your emergency? Is this the police? She breathed. She was freaking out. Heavy breathing. Scared, shaking voice. I've taken many calls like this, and from the sound of her voice, this was not going to be a routine call. I sat up straight and my heart started to pump faster. Yes, Mom. What is your emergency? There's someone in my house. She trailed off, very breathy and genuine, but not loud and freaking out. Okay, are you located at house address? Yes. I dispatch the cars to start heading over to the address, and I don't give a reason yet. Okay, do you know who this person is? Well, no I don't. I think I know this sounds so crazy. I think that there's a ghost in my house. She begins to sob and sound so freaking scared. There's noises and I know there is a ghost right in the other room. I can hear it right now. At this time, the sergeant asks me the reason of the call and why I sent him and 2 other cars without explanation. Normally you'd send 1 car to something like that. It's suspicious activity, I told him. What activity? He demanded over the radio. A fair question. Sir, the caller is claiming there is someone in the house and she believes it to be a ghost. Silence on the air for about a minute. 10-4 is all he said. By the time they got there, the ghost was gone and the poor lady was a freaked out mess. and she kept apologizing for calling us, but IT was real, she kept repeating. The officers later told me that her sincerity actually freaked them out a lot, and when they searched the house, guns drawn, even they were scared. You win. This is creepy, exceedingly so. Security count? I worked the control room at a museum. Some of our facilities included a Civil War era church and a former home for displaced war widows. A lot of it is circumstantial at best, older cameras, poorly installed sensors, but when you work the night shift, there are only 4 people on shift, and you consistently get different alarms that are only centered on those 2 buildings and statusy images of something. You start to wonder if it's just the equipment. They teach you at the police academy not to feed into people's delusions, but what they don't tell you is that if you don't feed into them, you will be going to that person's crazy butt calls all night. I keep a cardboard box covered with tin foil in the trunk of my patrol car just to catch ghosts, fairies, demons, whatever is troubling my complainant. I'd be worried that the delusional person would know I was fricking with them and the situation would escalate. Police officer here. One evening about 8 years ago, it was pouring outside and we got a call from an elderly woman. Seems to be a common theme in this thread. She called in and said that she was hearing footsteps in her house and she thought there was a ghost inside because she regularly heard the sound of someone walking upstairs, but she lived alone. We went just to check it out and make sure that everything was okay. She stayed on the line with the 911 operator because she was frightened. About 3 minutes after she initially called in, she said that there was actually a man standing outside in her backyard, staring at her through her sliding glass door. Petrified, the woman froze in that spot and continued to stare directly at the man. For the next minute or two she said that he was just standing there, still as could be, staring at her. Eventually the man slunk off out of sight. When we arrived, about 12 minutes after the call first came in, we went to the front door. I remained in the foyer with the woman and the other officer went to the backyard to see if the man was still hiding out or if there were any traces of him. I spoke with her for several minutes until the other officer returned. He said there was no trace of anyone having been in the backyard. We set off to do a quick sweep before we left to make sure the house was all clear. In her living room, the room that has the sliding glass door, we discovered a trail of mud and footprints inside the house. I asked the woman if she had been outside at all that day or if anyone had been over to visit her. She said no, that she lived alone, and that no one had come by to visit. The woman was very old, probably around 85, and had very poor eyesight and was hard of hearing, as elderly people tend to be. The woman obviously had seen the man's reflection and mistakenly thought he was in front of her, on the other side of the glass, in her backyard. In reality, he had been standing only a few feet behind her in the same room while she had been talking to 911. Nothing was stolen, broken, or out of place, so we don't know what his intentions were. Who knows what would have happened had she not stayed on the line with the operator. I know it sounds like something out of a campfire story, but it was honestly one of the most unnerving and creepy experiences I have had while on duty. TLDR. Responded to a call where an old woman thought there was a ghost in her house. She ended up seeing a man through her sliding glass door leading to her backyard. When we arrived, we discovered footprints indicating that the man had actually been inside of her house and she had been looking at his reflection in the sliding glass door. I woke up at 3 AM and couldn't sleep, so I've been reading this entire thread since then. 2 hours later and this far down into the comments they're starting to get less creepy, until I read yours. And just now as I finished reading it I heard something fall onto the bathroom floor a couple feet away. Time to get off Reddit. Not me, but my mom is an animal humane officer and my dad a cop. My mom got a call of a wild animal in an old woman's house. She went and this old lady is standing in a chair and pointing at her couch saying there are pink rhinos fricking on it and she wants them out and the couch set out by the curb. So my mom pretends to Soho the rhinos out and the lady finds some men to carry this couch and set it by the road. Later that night my dad got a call cause she wanted him to shoot the rhinos outside trying to get in. Cap gun. Obligatory. I'm not a cop, but my dad used to work 911 dispatch. Every week he got calls from the same woman claiming aliens and the government were trying to read her mind. Normally, he would just talk to her because units to dispatch were limited. Sometimes he would go ahead and bump out the call. The lady lined her entire house with aluminum foil and wore foil hats. The officer would have to go calm the lady down and assure her nothing was in the sky. Now I wonder if the government was testing drones in her area. I was doing security at a hospital with a IQ, surgical, the whole works, and I got called to several paranormal calls. Most were psych cases or paranoid people that heard a strange noise. This time more than one nurse saw a guy on the camera who was on his death's bed. A guy who kept saying I will not die in a hospital earlier that day, literally push his curtain aside and walk out of his room toward the elevator. A code was called and everyone immediately posted at their designated locations. Within seconds there were people watching the elevators and stairs, and security started combing the area and investigating. As I reached the IQ floor I spoke with the lead nurse and she told me several of the nurses saw him leave. At that moment monitors started going off. The guy never left. The guy went code blue and died right then. There were 3 witnesses on the report that say he got up and left and were serious enough to call a code which could cost them their jobs if they were wrong. The bosses wouldn't let us watch the video, but the looks on their faces said it all. The bosses said the nurses did the right thing and some things just can't be explained. The portion of the video I was allowed to see did show that nobody had left via elevator or stairs. This is from a friend who used to work as a security guard. My friend is a night person, so he's used to night shifts. Well, anyways, one night he's working to guard a mansion and at 2:22 a door access alarm goes off from the gym room. By usual protocol, he calls 911 and his cops deal with it. The cops, 2 of them, meets with my friend and heads to the gym room. A short while later, the cops starts yelling at my friend how prank calls is a serious offense and he shouldn't waste their time. My friend flabbergasted by the cops' reaction. He asks what's wrong and one of the cops says that an old lady told them that she was in the house for a long time. My friend not understanding what lady they're talking about since there's no one in that mansion. The owners left on a cruise for a month or so. They stop to stare at each other in silence and heads inside the mansion. My friend swears to me it's true. They go inside and right at the entry hall, you can see the painting of the old lady. The cops turns white and leaves. My friend, confused by what happened, just nopes out of there the moment he finished his shift. Apparently, that was the painting of the current owner's great-grandmother. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.